A stranger smiles at you on the street. You don't know their name, their history, or their intentions, and you'll likely never see them again after this moment passes. Yet, something in you softens instantly, a small automatic shift toward trust, before a single word has been exchanged. You didn't decide to feel that. It simply happened, faster than thought, the way a reflex happens. That's strange when you actually look at it. How can a stranger's face, a configuration of muscles you've never seen before, produce trust that fast? The answer isn't really about that stranger at all. It's about millions of years of ancestors who needed to answer one urgent question within a fraction of a second, every single time they encountered someone new. Friend or threat? Psychologist Paul Ekman spent decades studying facial expressions across dramatically different cultures, including isolated communities with little to no contact with the outside world. What he found was striking. A genuine smile, one that engages the muscles around the eyes and not just the mouth, was recognized as an expression of warmth and safety by people everywhere he tested, regardless of language, geography, or culture. There's a physical layer to this too, one that happens before you're even aware you're reacting. Researchers studying facial mimicry have found that people unconsciously mirror the expressions of those they're looking at, activating tiny movements in their own facial muscles that echo what they're seeing, often within a fraction of a second. When a stranger smiles at you, some part of your own face may already be responding before your conscious mind has caught up to what just happened. That mirrored motion feeds back into your own emotional state, gently pulling your mood a few degrees toward theirs. This is why a room full of scowling faces can make you feel tense within minutes, and a room full of warm, smiling ones can make you feel at ease just as quickly, often without you ever consciously registering why your mood shifted at all. Think about what that means. A signal this consistent, this universal, isn't something a society taught you. It's something wired in, before you ever learned a single word. Here's what's actually happening in that split second on the street. Your brain isn't consciously analyzing the stranger's face the way you'd read a paragraph, weighing each feature in order. It's running a rapid, largely unconscious pattern match, checking the shape of the eyes, the tension in the jaw, the specific muscles engaged around the mouth. Against templates your ancestors relied on to separate safety from danger long before language existed to describe either one. A smile that reaches the eyes tells that ancient system one thing very clearly: no immediate threat detected. And once that system relaxes, so do you. Developmental researchers studying infants have found this system switches on remarkably early. Babies only a few months old already show a preference for looking at faces displaying warm, open expressions over neutral or hostile ones, long before they've had enough life experience to learn what a smile is supposed to mean. That preference isn't taught by parents or culture. It appears to be present almost from the start, as if the blueprint for reading a friendly face was already loaded in before a single social lesson had been given. Go back to the world your ancestors actually lived in. Small bands, moving across open landscapes, regularly encountering other groups of strangers whose intentions were completely unknown. A face was often the only piece of information available before a first sentence was even spoken. Read that face wrong, and you might miss a genuine ally. Read it wrong the other way, and you might not survive the encounter. Evolutionary psychologists studying social cognition describe this as one of the highest stakes, split-second judgments the human brain evolved to make. A judgment made with almost no time and almost no information, yet weighted with consequences that could ripple through an entire lifetime. Getting it right meant new alliances, shared resources, expanded safety in numbers. Getting it wrong could mean exploitation, conflict, or worse. A brain that could read trustworthiness quickly, even imperfectly, had a real survival advantage over a brain that hesitated. This kind of rapid, instinctive trust signal isn't unique to humans either. Primatologists studying social bonding in chimpanzees and bonobos have documented similar rapid facial signals used to diffuse tension and invite cooperation between individuals who are otherwise strangers or rivals. A relaxed, open expression in these species can shift an encounter from potential conflict to tolerance within moments, without a single vocalization. That suggests this entire system, reading a face quickly to gauge intention, is older than language itself, older even than the earliest humans, inherited from ancestors we shared with our closest primate relatives millions of years before modern humans existed. So, what exactly is your brain measuring when it decides, almost instantly, whether to trust a face? Psychologist Alexander Todorov, who studies how people form snap judgments about faces, found that people form an impression of trustworthiness from a completely unfamiliar face in a tenth of a second, long before there's been any time for conscious reasoning. Giving people more time to look didn't significantly change their first impression. It only made them feel more confident in a judgment their brain had already made almost instantly. That's the part that should give you pause. The confidence you feel about a first impression has almost nothing to do with how much thinking actually produced it. Here's where it gets even more interesting. Todorov's research suggests certain facial features, wider eyes, upturned mouth corners, a relaxed brow, consistently read as trustworthy across a huge range of observers, regardless of whether the person behind that face is actually trustworthy at all. Your ancient trust detection system is remarkably fast and remarkably confident, but it isn't actually measuring honesty. It's measuring a resemblance to safety. That distinction matters more than it sounds. A resemblance to safety and actual safety are two completely different things, and your gut feeling can't always tell them apart. That's a strange thing to sit with. The confidence you feel in that first read of a stranger's face is often stronger than any real evidence you actually have about who they are. So why does a genuine smile carry so much weight if the system can be fooled? Some researchers studying oxytocin have gone further, showing that the hormone doesn't just make people feel warmer toward the person in front of them. In controlled experiments, participants given oxytocin were measurably more willing to trust a complete stranger with money in an economic trust game, handing over more than people who hadn't received the hormone, even knowing they might never see that money again. A friendly face, it turns out, can trigger a chemical state that quietly reshapes actual decisions, not just fleeting feelings. There's a biological reward built into this exchange that goes both directions. Studies on oxytocin, sometimes called the bonding hormone, show that friendly social contact, including something as small as a warm smile exchange between strangers, can trigger a small release of oxytocin in both people. That chemical shift nudges you toward cooperation and further trust, creating a brief feedback loop where warmth invites warmth back. This means trust isn't purely a judgment your brain makes and then holds still. It's partly a chemical state, one that a single smile can gently nudge into motion. Now here's the twist modern life adds to all of this. Your ancestors' trust system evolved in a world where nearly every face you encountered belonged to someone real, standing in front of you, with real stakes attached to the interaction. Today, you encounter carefully composed, sometimes entirely manufactured expressions constantly in photographs, in advertising, in video, in profile pictures curated for exactly this effect. Researchers studying persuasion and marketing have long understood this quirk of human psychology. A smiling face in an advertisement isn't there by accident. It's there because it reliably nudges the same ancient trust circuitry that once helped your ancestors decide whether an approaching stranger meant safety or harm, the same circuitry, just aimed at a photograph instead of a person. This effect isn't limited to advertising either. Researchers studying online interaction have found that even a small static smiling photo attached to a profile or a message can measurably increase how trustworthy, competent, and likable a stranger seems, based on nothing more than that single image, before a single word of actual conversation has taken place. An entire first impression, one that can influence hiring decisions, dating choices, and business dealings, can be shaped almost entirely by a photograph engineered to trigger the same circuitry your ancestors relied on to size up a stranger across an open field. That means the very same reflex that once protected your ancestors from real danger can now be deliberately triggered by people who understand exactly how it works. From marketers designing a smiling mascot to strangers online, curating a profile photo meant to feel instantly approachable, all aiming at the same ancient circuitry with modern precision. So does that mean you should stop trusting smiles altogether? Not exactly. The system isn't broken. It's simply operating in an environment radically different from the one it evolved for. One where the signal, a genuine warm expression, still generally means what it always meant, but where that same signal can now be manufactured, practiced, or deployed strategically far more easily than a real ancestor could ever fake it convincingly in the moment. Here's an important detail researchers have found that offers a bit of reassurance. Genuine smiles and performed smiles aren't actually identical, even if they fool a casual glance. Ekman's research identified a specific difference, later named the Duchenne marker, after the scientist who first described it, involving the small muscles around the eyes that are extremely difficult to control voluntarily, muscles most people can't consciously flex on command no matter how hard they try. Most people, most of the time, still unconsciously pick up on that difference, even if they can't consciously explain what tipped them off. That means your ancient trust system isn't as easily fooled as it might seem. It's simply calibrated for a world with far fewer strangers, far fewer manufactured signals, and far higher stakes attached to every single face-to-face encounter. Think about your ancestor again, standing at the edge of unfamiliar territory, watching another figure approach across open ground, weighing everything on the shape of a face and the set of a jaw with no words yet exchanged. That first smile, if it was genuine, meant something enormous. It meant a possible ally, a possible trade, a possible friendship that could improve the odds of survival for an entire small group. The stakes of trusting a stranger's face were about as high as stakes could get, often the difference between a group that thrived and one that quietly didn't. You don't face those exact stakes anymore, not usually, not on a crowded street or in a passing glance from someone you'll forget within the hour. But the wiring underneath your reaction hasn't changed nearly as fast as your environment has. The same warmth that once helped your ancestors form life-saving alliances is still quietly running every time you pass someone on the street, glance at a photo, or meet someone new for the first time. Next time, a stranger's smile softens something in you before you've even had a conscious thought about it. You'll know exactly what's happening. An ancient alliance detector, refined over millions of years of encounters where getting it right meant survival and getting it wrong meant danger, just did its job in a fraction of a second, quietly and automatically, the same way it has done for every person who came before you, all the way back to the very first stranger who ever dared to smile first, hoping it would be read the right way.